This is my 1953 Lister D-Type. As you can see, it's the clockwise rotation 700 RPM model. It's badged up as a DH3, which of course means it's made in 1953, so it's really one of the later ones. The paintwork is of course mid-Brunswick green. I've actually used a lead-based paint on this one. Contrary to popular opinion, you can still get lead paint from specialist suppliers, and it gives a very good finish. This engine was restored about 2 years ago and by me, and it's still pretty good. It's still half right. It still looks pretty good. The stickers, or the transfers I should say, here, and the arrow on the flywheel and the transfers around the other side, they're available off eBay. They're not very expensive, they're 7 or 8 quid, and they just finish it off nicely. Just to brighten this one up, I've put a nice new copper fuel pipe on it. Again, that's about 7 or 8 quid. It's not too dear. Nice bit of shiny copper makes them look nice. And it's had a new exhaust from Stationary Engine Spares as well. And like I say, it was restored about 2 years ago, and I put it on the trolley about 18 months ago, and it runs very well. These stationary engines were of course mainly used on farms for pumping water, or they're connected up to a generator or a milking compressor, or any sort of farm machinery, anything that used to be done by a small steam engine. These are the engines that took over from the small steam plants on the farm, really. And the Lister D-Type was made, off the top of my head, I think it was made from 1926 to 1964, and they made about 250,000 of them. And I think the next video we're going to get old Lizzie here going, and I'm going to give her a run in the back garden and see if she behaves herself. I'm just going to say a little bit about the starting procedure for the D-Type. I'm going to assume that you've been round the engine with the oil can and you've checked the oil level in the sump. Now, the D-Type, if it's set up properly, it should start really quite easily. All you have to do, turn the fuel on, just the fuel tap under the tank there. You've got a mixture screw here. You want to have that fully anti-clockwise, so that's rich mixture. And then you just use the tickler on top of the carburettor here, just to hold the float down, and that just floods the carburettor. And you need to keep just jiggling the tickler up and down until you get a little dribble of petrol out the top of the float bowl there. And that means that the engine is properly primed. So that's all it is really, the starting procedure. Turn the fuel on, set the mixture and tickle the carburettor. And if your engine's set up nicely and you've got a good magneto, 2 or 3 turns of the handle and it should start up. Now some people, they like to, this air valve here, see that goes up and down, some people they like to hold that shut when starting. On my D-Types I've not found that necessary. I think it might be necessary on the earlier ones, the early D-Types from the 1920s that don't have a float chamber. That might be necessary to suck it out the tank. But on the more modern Ds that have the ammo float chamber, holding the air valve shut really shouldn't be necessary. If you tickle the carburettor sufficiently, that should be enough to prime the engine. And now we're going to take Lizzie out into the garden, and the next video is going to be of the engine having a bit of a run.